Hi, I'm Randy Kwan. I'm the lead instructor and chair of the Film and Video Technology at Hines Community College in Pearl, Mississippi. And of course, today is April 3rd, 2020. It's Friday, and at 5 o'clock this evening, a shelter in place goes on for 2 weeks through April 20th. Basically, I came up here at the school because it's the last day we can actually get out, and I just needed to kind of get all my materials for basically teaching online. Of course, like everybody else, we had spring break back in March, I think 9th, we started. And like everybody else, I didn't believe how bad COVID-19 was. Watched the news, didn't believe the hype, figured it was just sensationalism, basically all that until it started to explode. Then toward the end of that week of the 9th, we started getting emails from our president that we needed to start preparing online classes. They were basically, there was calls for schools to be out. All the high schools were canceling class, delaying classes for 2 weeks. And we got the notice that basically toward the end of spring break, that we needed to be prepared to move online for our classes. So the week we were scheduled to come back to school, which was, let's see, what was that, March 16th. Prior to that, they sent out a notice, told the students that they would have a second week off. Of course, we had to come back to the school, figure out a game plan. We were told that all the classes be prepared to have 2 weeks of online classes. So of course there was a mad scramble for that. I was trying to figure out what to do for those classes because we are a technical program, and our computers here in the lab, we have Premiere on them, we have our 4K cameras. I had rushed to create some online classes for those. I gave them lesson plans. I had, Adobe was fortunate in that they're allowing students to download Adobe for free until end of May. So, rushed to try to get that in place. Rushed to take my original video project that I was going to have the students edit on, put that online. Well, ran into issues with Adobe. Students couldn't download it. I actually had eventually found out that I had to go in and tell the students, allow the students in as administrators, and so they could actually download the software. Well, from there, of course, the issue became, since we are a somewhat rural state, that students did not have high enough internet speed to actually download the files. Files were taking, an hour long. Several students were always getting kicked off, so they couldn't download it. Adobe, was an issue. The students don't have, some of the students don't have fast enough computers to run Adobe. It just basically became a nightmare. So what I ended up doing was I went back to a company that 9 years ago was one of the first companies that started teaching film production online, and I'd actually talked to the owner back then. Got in touch with them, discovered that they had actually created online lesson plans, and along with accompanying videos showing different aspects of film production. And it turned out that there are at least 2 people that I'd worked with in LA that were somewhat instructors on these classes, so that was kind of cool to find out. Because of COVID-19, they had slashed their prices, and I talked to my dean and was able to integrate those classes into my curriculum. Matter of fact, after exploring what they've done to their program over the past 5 or 6 years, which was probably the last time I really looked at it, was amazing. And I think I've convinced the dean to actually allow me to integrate those into my curriculum for next year. But the problem I'm running into is that since all the classes are now online and they have to take these classes, I've of course split them up into weekly lessons, and the students are not really keeping up with that schedule. Matter of fact, I've had some students who I've actually had to call to contact because they haven't replied to the school emails. And they told me they would actually get on and start doing work, but they haven't. School policy says that if they do not attend the online classes and show weekly that they're doing stuff, I have to mark them absent. And unfortunately, I think some students may be kicked out of school unintentionally. This afternoon, I'm going to try to make calls to those students to remind them yet again that they need to get online, but we'll see. Since we are a technical program, there's a lot of hands-on material, dealing with cameras, dealing with Final Cut, dealing with the equipment, schedule breakdown. My thought process on that is to allow the online classes and the accompanying tests be the grade for the semester, so when we come back to the fall, we actually have a crash course on all the equipment the first week or two. We'll see how well that works. These are uncharted times as an instructor. We don't know. On the personal side, it's been crazy. Once this material started up, I actually went out and bought toilet tissue, actually spring break. I was fortunate in that I was able to get toilet paper before the shortage. And I'm actually buying for my parents. My parents have got a house here in Jackson, actually Pearl. And Dad's 86, Mom is 81. Both have health issues. Dad is diabetic. He's had his spleen taken out. He's got high blood pressure, borderline high blood pressure. Mom, of course, is a cancer survivor. It's gonna be interesting. We're up in the Delta in their older home, the one we grew up in, and of course they drove down this yesterday. They were up there self-quarantining up in the Delta, but they had run out of rice, they had run out of pasta, they were basically eating mashed potatoes, which was the last thing they had. So they basically had to come to Pearl yesterday because they've run out of food. I, over the past week or so, basically helped stock up their food. We actually have a deep freezer, so I've spent more on food than I ever have at one particular time. Financially, it's put me in a burden, but we have food for this 2-week lockdown for sure. For my parents and myself. We're just gonna try to ride it out. It's gonna be interesting. It's gonna be good being at home, so I don't have to come to school, but I'm gonna have to readjust because now everything is online, so I have to keep up with that. Fortunately, I was kind of a Luddite and never had internet at the house, but fortunately, 2 months ago we got it. I kind of hated it because I thought it was kind of a waste of time a waste of money because I'm always here at the school and I've got internet at the school, but now it works out really well, especially with moving classes online. Alcohol's been a problem. Fortunately, Costco last weekend had a shipment of alcohol in, rubbing alcohol. So I was able to buy the limit on that, which was 4 bottles. Gave 2 to my parents. Spent all day yesterday shopping for them. I had my parents send me a list of food that they wanted, and bought that from what I thought was going to only be about 2 hours, 3 hours of work, turned into probably about a 6-hour job, because Costco had basically I had to wait in line 30 minutes before I could get in the store. Of course, prior to this, nobody was wearing gloves, nobody was taking it serious, very few people were. This time, yesterday when I went in, you could see quite a few people with masks on. Everybody had gloves, just about. It was much more serious and people were stocking up. 2 days ago, our governor did issue this stay-at-home mandate, shelter at home, basically shelter at home. So everybody was actually loading up for all that. Gas is really cheap. Fortunately, nobody can. We actually have the feud between Saudi Arabia and Russia over the fuel. So they had that feud going on, and because of the coronavirus, the pandemic, nobody is actually driving around, which is fortunate. But gas is, I think, around 149. I think I saw in Madison, and then a couple of gas stations here in Pearl. But of course, nobody is able to really take advantage of it. I've talked to a lot of people. They're talking about setting up gardens. That's kind of what I plan on doing. We have some planters in the backyard. We're going to work on that. I'm probably going to do a sourdough bread starting this evening, since shelter in place begins at 5 o'clock. I've got some. I'm gonna probably pickle some garlic and have some other little things I want to catch up with, and actually have time to actually do stuff around the house. All last weekend I basically did yard work, so I've got that done, and of course had to do my parents' house, and did all their yard work. It's gonna be interesting times. I hope everybody else is doing well. I know, of course, the death count keeps rising. My understanding is that Mississippi will not peak on the COVID virus until April 22nd, around then. Hopefully, when we start to get things under control. There seems to be a development. Well, they're working on developments for an antibody for this. My understanding is that most people who get this have been dying from it, have had pre-existing conditions. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what happens. But anyway, that's it for now, guys. Guys, take care. Bye.